Today we wanted to talk about the importance of apologies and making up.
Apologies and making up.
And often we share about areas in our relationship where we had deficits or were remedial in our capacity and where we learned how to do better. But this, I think, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think is an area where we actually had some natural ability.
In making up?
Yes.
Well, I think we did have some natural ability, but it was somewhat contaminated by some sort of artificial concepts that were introduced into the proceedings that were not to my liking, I hasten to add.
Yes, that's true. So even though we were actually pretty good at being able to get over things and to get back into a good feeling together, I still was compelled to bring technique and strategy.
You do like your technique. Maybe there was a bit of an addiction to technique almost.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I'm breaking that habit. But one of the ones that it seems that you might even still have harbor a little bit resentment over is the one where the technique would be that after an argument, when one person wanted to apologize, the technique would be for each person to take 100% responsibility for what happened.
Yes, I didn't like that at all. Because that to me was tantamount to this idea that I would have to apologize for something that really I felt no responsibility for whatsoever. That you may have crossed some line that was not to my satisfaction. You wanted to make an apology, and you were encouraged to make this apology by this person who shall remain nameless, who would be a person that we may go and see for our marriage counselling, let's say.
My dealer, my technique dealer.
Your technique dealer. That this would in some way kind of like allow you to save face. That you wouldn't have to feel bad about making the apology. That your ego would be kind of let down gently in that situation by virtue of the fact, oh, I'm responsible too. And that just didn't sit well with me, although having said that, I think because I still nevertheless in my natural capacity to want to strive for well-being and a good feeling would sometimes, okay, we'll play this game. And that was kind of my wisdom saying to myself, you know what, to get to that good, if this is what it takes to get to that good feeling, let's do it. But it didn't really, it didn't sit well with me per se. And the worst case scenario was have to go through that and then have to do some soul gazing on top of it.
That never happened.
But it may have done.
In your mind.
That'd be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Then I have to apologize for that.
You can apologize now for putting me through it.
So that was an artificial way where you wouldn't feel that it was fair for you to have to take responsibility. If I had lost my cool and not been kind to you, you didn't feel that there was any need for you to be apologizing to me.
You think? Now that you say it out loud, it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it?
Well, I can see now, looking back, that it was kind of like having training wheels, because what's important is the getting over it, is the coming back together, is being back in a good feeling. And in a sense, it was easier for me. Why are you frowning so much?
Well, no.
Okay.
Finish your thought.
In a sense, I can see how you're right. It was easier for me to offer the apology, expecting that there was going to be one coming back my way, even if it wasn't related to it being applicable in terms of what you've done. But what's important is where we would get to. But without the training, you're still frowning.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
Carry on.
I'm getting all insecure.
I'm waiting for
your
my
face.
rebuttal moment.
Go ahead. What's your rebuttal?
Well, no. I just feel like it was just, in a sense, just keeping us, for me in that situation, it was a recipe for disaster as far as the feeling was concerned. So hopefully I would see, ultimately I want to get us back to that place of well-being, and maybe there were times when I could get to that high ground and not take the whole situation personally, in respect that, you are making your apology, now there's an expectation for me to do so as well. I just felt like that's automatically putting me in a situation where I'm kind of getting caught up in my own sort of feelings of resentment potentially, and it's like it just feels like someone has to swallow their pride rather than like, no, let's look in the direction of that beautiful feeling. Let's look in the direction of that well-being, which is innate in all of us, and just trust that, yeah, we will fall back into that sweet spot. And there's really nothing that we have to do to get us there. And it's the idea that you have to get there through some technique is just really encouraging you to get kind of caught up in your intellect and really kind of trying to solve the problem from the same level of consciousness that you created it in the first place. Not to, to try and paraphrase Einstein.
Well, you just did.
But in a sense, it's like, that for me is meaningful. I think if we're going to get really caught up in some sort of intellectual technique, it's kind of taken us away from the very thing that really is innate and natural in all of us, which is that sense of well-being. Let's have a conversation there, and let's look in that direction, and look to having a conversation at that level, rather than sort of like throw some technique in the mix.
Well, what I think is really key is that we both understand that getting over upset is important for relationships. And rather than, as you're saying, muddying the waters by throwing in a whole bunch of hoops to jump through,
Hoopla.
what actually gets us to that place most easily and most simply is that we all have a natural desire to be back in a loving feeling, to be back in an experience of connection, and that if we follow that feeling and if we listen to the wisdom that comes from that place, we will naturally take whatever actions are going to be required to move in that direction. So, like in an extreme example, if I'd, beaten you up, I don't expect you to apologize to me for beating you up. That would be, not acceptable on any level. And so, but if I have behaved badly, it would absolutely benefit the relationship if I could take responsibility and accountability and share that with you and demonstrate that, there was genuine remorse as a result of that. There could potentially be repair work in the relationship. I'm not saying that, I shouldn't have thrown the example of domestic violence in there, but in terms of, the arguing and the conflict that we would have in the past, if I was willing to take that kind of responsibility, that would have allowed us to get to that place from a very genuine level without that technique. And the same for you. Yeah,
and I think for me, at the end of the day, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about what is natural and what is unnatural. For me, going through that technique is something that just feels really unnatural. And you're trying to sort of like, it's sort of the pursuit of well-being rather than like falling into it.
Yeah.
And I think that I think is important to say, because I think that intellectual pursuit is just going to get you more stirred up and kind of set yourself up for disappointment, which I think probably was my experience on the numerous occasions. And I think because I felt resentment, the fact I have to apologize too, but you come to the table and are genuinely remorseful because you're already in a state where your mind is settled, and you are in a loving space. Then I'm going to respond to that in a whole different way. And I think if you're genuinely in that loving space, there's going to be no expectation for me, because for what you know now, it's like there's nothing that I can really bring to the table that you need to take personally, and vice versa. So I think that's the healthier direction to look in. And bless his cotton socks, whoever came up with this technique.
Oh, I see.
It's coming from a place where they felt there may be some traction or some leverage. It's just, I feel like it was really setting herself up for further discord.
Mm-hmm. When really what the opportunity is to simply follow the wisdom in the heart and let that guide the process of reconciliation.
Always.
Well, have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend.